Anchorage, the vibrant core of Alaska, stands suspended between splendor and sorrow. Visitors come chasing glaciers and northern lights, yet only streets away, people huddle in tents against the same icy air that attracts tourists. The wild has always tested human endurance, but now it reveals just how fragile existence becomes without a roof.
It sucks being homeless, and I don't want to ever see none of my little girl homeless. She's 1 year old, my first baby.
This isn't only Anchorage's burden. It is America's reality exposed beneath the snow. The rising wave of homelessness in Anchorage. Based on the latest data from the Anchorage Continuum of Care 2696, individuals are currently homeless in the city, with nearly 600 living entirely without shelter. That means hundreds of men and women spend their nights in tents, abandoned vehicles, or improvised structures fighting to survive in a climate where winter can easily claim lives. This is no longer a quiet crisis. It's visible everywhere on sidewalks and parks along major roads, forcing the community to face it head-on. The surge in homelessness didn't emerge overnight. Like countless cities across the nation, Anchorage had been grappling with poverty, escalating rents, and a failing mental health system for years. Then came the pandemic, striking hardest at those already on the financial edge. Jobs vanished, savings disappeared, and housing costs soared beyond reach. By 2023, shelters were packed to capacity, and every affordable unit was snapped up the instant it appeared. The result was tragically foreseeable. More people left outdoors without shelter, without warmth, and with little hope of recovery.
We do got that shit. You know what? Don't touch my belongings. I come into your home and take and move shit that you have.
If you walk through neighborhoods like Northwood or down Strawberry Road, you'll find clusters of tents held together by tarps and pieces of wood. Inside are not nameless faces, but individuals who once led stable lives, construction workers, waitresses, veterans, even families who once owned homes. The question residents keep asking time and again is simple. How can a city with such vast land and abundant resources let its own citizens live this way? And beyond that, what does this reveal about the broader condition of homeless in America today? Anchorage's situation reflects what's unfolding in cities like Seattle, Portland. In San Francisco, more people living on the streets, shelters overwhelmed, and officials struggling for solutions. But Anchorage bears a heavier burden. In this city, winter temperatures plunge well below zero. Here, homelessness isn't just a struggle, it can mean the difference between life and death. Who are the most vulnerable? When discussing homelessness, many imagine a lone man on the street corner battling addiction. In Anchorage, the truth is far more layered. The city's unhoused population includes people of every age, gender, and walk of life, with stories that shatter the stereotypes shaping public perception. Alaska Natives remain the most severely impacted. Although they represent only around 15% of Anchorage's residents, they make up nearly half of those experiencing homelessness. Generations of displacement, systemic discrimination, and unequal access to opportunity have left lasting wounds. Many who relocate from rural villages to the city in search of jobs or medical care end up overwhelmed by high expenses and little assistance. They are often among the first to slip through society's gaps. Women and children escaping domestic abuse face another heartbreaking path. Shelters like Awayik are frequently at full capacity, leaving many with no safe options. Maria, a young mother of 2, fled her violent partner and spent the frigid winter living in her car. I told my kids it was a camping trip, she shared, but I cried myself to sleep every night. Stories like hers reveal a hidden pain rarely covered by the media. Older adults and people with disabilities are especially at risk. Many seniors, after decades of hard work, now find their fixed incomes crushed by surging rents. For them, homelessness means more than losing shelter. It's exposure to sickness, hunger, and the slow erosion of dignity in later life. Young people are also becoming increasingly visible. Teens and young adults, some LGBTQ+, and rejected by family end up on the streets where exploitation and addiction take hold. One 19-year-old said surviving meant choosing between warmth, safety, or a place to sleep. Finally, the largest portion remains single men, many struggling with untreated mental illness or substance dependency. Though they face the harshest judgment, their suffering exposes systemic gaps, a shortage of mental health care, limited treatment access, and jobs that no longer sustain basic living. Anchorage's homeless community proves that vulnerability spans every demographic Alaska. Natives, women and children, seniors, those with disabilities, and the young. Here, homelessness isn't about a few unlucky individuals. It's about deep-rooted inequities colliding with human struggle. And if this is unfolding in Anchorage, what does it tell us about the larger crisis of homeless in America? The fragile social safety net. When residents of Anchorage lose their homes, the safety nets designed to support them are fragile at best. Shelters, food banks, and outreach services do exist, and countless nonprofit workers and volunteers dedicate themselves selflessly to the mission. But the magnitude of the crisis exceeds what the system can handle. What was once built for brief emergencies now buckles under the strain of a long-term catastrophe. The Anchorage Continuum of Care, COC, has served as the backbone of coordination efforts, placing more than 6,800 people into housing since 2017. Over 3/4 of them have managed to stay stably housed for at least 2 years, clear evidence that targeted help makes a difference. Yet the waiting list reveals a harsher reality. More than 3,000 people remain trapped in tents cars or overcrowded shelters hoping for housing that may never materialize. Affordable options are few and progress moves painfully slow. Emergency shelters offer short-term refuge, but capacity is perpetually insufficient. When a major shelter on East 56th Avenue shut down in April 2025, hundreds were forced back into freezing conditions. Anchorage winters make such closures a matter of life or death. In their absence, hospitals, police departments, and even libraries often serve as temporary havens. Straining institutions never meant to bear that burden. Food assistance programs, largely run by churches and nonprofits, prevent thousands from going hungry every week. Yet they depend on donations and short-lived grants that can vanish at any time. That same uncertainty plagues mental health and substance recovery services. Anchorage struggles with a critical shortage of psychiatrist treatment spaces and rehabilitation options. As a result, many individuals rotate endlessly between the streets, emergency rooms, and jail cells, never getting the steady care needed to rebuild their lives. Camp abatements create yet another wave of instability. City crews dismantle camps for health and safety reasons, but the human toll is severe. Tents, medications, identification, all lost. For those barely surviving, losing such essentials can erase months of hard-earned progress. It raises the question, are these sweeps solving homelessness, or merely relocating it to other parts of the city? Adding to the crisis, federal budget cuts, nearing $10 billion, have drained housing and homelessness programs across the nation. For Anchorage, that translates to fewer grants, fewer construction efforts, and fewer sustainable solutions. Local churches and civic groups have stepped in to fill the void. Projects like In Our Backyard have built small home communities that provide safety and dignity for older residents. Though limited in scale, these efforts prove that hope can persist even when systems collapse. Still, the broader picture remains grim. Anchorage's safety net was never equipped for a disaster of this scale. It was intended for temporary disruptions, not for years of soaring rents, untreated addiction, and deepening despair. And so the question endures, if the net can't bear today's burden, what future awaits? Not just Anchorage, but the wider crisis of homeless in America. The underlying causes. Homelessness in Anchorage is not a random occurrence. It's the result of powerful forces that have been building for many years. While numerous factors contribute to this crisis, 3 stand out as the most significant. The extreme shortage of affordable housing, the soaring cost of living tied to economic instability, and the devastating toll of addiction and untreated mental illness. Together, these issues form a cycle that ensnares thousands of residents and makes recovery incredibly difficult. The housing shortage sits at the very center of the issue. Over the last decade, the construction of affordable homes has failed to keep up with demand. Middle-income earners now compete for the same units as low-income families, and landlords naturally prefer tenants with steady jobs and solid credit. For people living paycheck to paycheck, even a small rent hike of a few $100s can lead to eviction. Once displaced, their choices are heartbreakingly limited shelters already full or the harsh reality of life on the streets. Housing First programs in other cities have proven that stability starts with housing. Yet, in Anchorage, that foundation remains unreachable for too many. The high cost of living in Anchorage only deepens the housing emergency. Alaska's geographic isolation inflates the price of nearly everything: groceries, heating, fuel, medical care, and transportation. A simple gallon of milk or a full tank of gas can cost significantly more than in the lower 48 states. At the same time, many local jobs depend on seasonal work and fishing tourism or construction. While these positions can offer decent pay, they disappear once the season ends, leaving families with no steady income. For households already on the edge, an unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, or reduced hours can easily push them into homelessness. The line between survival and collapse is razor thin. Finally, addiction and mental illness remain heavy burdens on Anchorage's streets. The rise of fentanyl and methamphetamine has wreaked havoc, trapping people in addiction with little hope for escape. But the substances themselves tell only part of the story. Anchorage faces a persistent lack of treatment facilities, psychiatrists, and long-term recovery support. Too often, those struggling with depression, PTSD, or schizophrenia cycle endlessly between hospitals, jails, and encampments. These are temporary fixes, not real solutions, and they fail to meet the deeper needs of those seeking to rebuild their lives. Without strong, coordinated mental health and addiction services, any plan to end homelessness will inevitably fall short. Together, these three forces, limited housing, unbearable living costs, and untreated mental illness and addiction, make up the core of Anchorage's homelessness crisis. Tackling just one is not enough. True progress requires addressing all three with approaches that restore stability, preserve dignity, and create a lasting path forward. Government actions and policy barriers. Anchorage has attempted to tackle its homelessness crisis, but the actions taken often expose the weaknesses of the system more than its capabilities. In recent years, the city has tested both compassionate outreach and tougher enforcement, forming a patchwork of strategies that sometimes help but often worsen the situation. On the supportive front, city officials and nonprofits have advanced initiatives focused on permanent housing solutions. The Anchorage Continuum of Care has successfully placed thousands into secure homes, while rapid rehousing and rental assistance programs have delivered tangible progress. Community-led projects such as tiny home villages and faith-based transitional housing showcase the innovation that arises when standard methods fail. These initiatives demonstrate that with proper resources, individuals can move out of homelessness permanently. Yet simultaneously, the city has leaned on punitive approaches. In July 2025, the Assembly approved a divisive law that imposes fines and potential jail time on those camping near schools, playgrounds, or residential areas. Supporters claim the ordinance protects public safety, but opponents insist it merely punishes poverty. By drawing homeless individuals into the justice system, it makes securing housing or employment far more difficult. Rather than solving homelessness, it simply shifts the issue into jails and courtrooms. The instability of Anchorage's shelter network poses another major challenge. When several large shelters shut down in early 2025 due to staffing shortages and budget deficits, hundreds were left without a place to go. Temporary warming centers opened in response, yet they lacked coordination with long-term housing solutions, trapping many people in a loop of brief stays and constant displacement. Chronic funding shortages remain perhaps the most serious obstacle. Nationwide reductions of roughly $10 billion to housing and homelessness programs have stripped away vital federal aid. For Anchorage, this translates into fewer affordable housing projects, limited access to supportive care, and an over-reliance on nonprofits already stretched thin. Without steady funding, even the most effective initiatives cannot scale or endure. Eligibility policies create further complications. Some shelters enforce sobriety requirements, shutting out those who most need structured support. Others prioritize families, leaving single adults who make up the majority of the homeless population without options. Though meant to protect safety and fairness, these rules often weaken the core mission of providing refuge. Anchorage now stands at a crossroads: continue managing homelessness through regulation and enforcement, or commit to long-term strategies like housing first, expanded behavioral health care, and affordable housing development. The path chosen will determine whether this crisis is genuinely reduced or simply pushed out of public view. What path forward for Anchorage? For Anchorage to truly progress, the city must evolve from temporary fixes to sustainable, long-term solutions. The most effective framework is the Housing First model, already validated in cities such as Houston and Salt Lake City. This strategy provides permanent housing without conditions, acknowledging that stability is the cornerstone for rebuilding health, employment, and personal recovery. Studies reveal that once individuals have a stable home, they are far more inclined to seek treatment, secure work, and reconnect with society. Expanding access to affordable housing must stand at the center of Anchorage's plan. This means constructing new units, preserving existing affordable homes, and offering rental support, so working families are not priced out. Achieving this will demand true cooperation among local government, private developers, and nonprofit organizations. Mental health and addiction services also require significant expansion. Anchorage needs additional treatment spaces, comprehensive recovery programs, and stronger links between housing and healthcare systems. Without these connections, the destructive cycle of relapse and homelessness will persist. Prevention efforts are equally vital. Individuals leaving prisons, hospitals, or foster care should not end up directly on the streets. Survivors of domestic violence must have secure housing options to escape abuse and rebuild safely. Community coalitions, faith-based groups, and neighborhood programs have already demonstrated innovation through tiny home villages and transitional shelters. Expanding these initiatives could offer immediate comfort and renewed dignity. Ultimately, Anchorage must recognize homelessness not as a nuisance to be hidden, but as a humanitarian crisis demanding empathy and determination. With the right vision and policies, Anchorage can join other cities in proving that real progress happens when housing is treated as a fundamental human right. Personal reflection. Reflecting on Anchorage's crisis, it becomes evident that homelessness is about more than the absence of a home. It speaks to dignity, fairness, and the moral foundation of our nation. When I see elderly men braving the Alaskan cold in tents or young children waiting for food in a church basement, I realize this issue isn't remote. It exists right within our neighborhoods. Too often, especially in political conversations, homelessness is reduced to data points or policy talk. Yet each statistic represents a real person, a veteran, who served proudly, a woman escaping violence, a youth rejected by their own family. They are not outsiders, they are our neighbors, fellow citizens, and members of a shared human story. Anchorage may be just one city, but its challenges mirror the broader truth of homeless in America. Alaska's harsh, relentless weather amplifies the struggle, but the root causes rising housing prices. Addiction, mental health gaps, and systemic injustice persist nationwide. What unfolds in Anchorage isn't a singular tragedy. It is a reflection of the nation as a whole. Therefore, the real question is not only how Anchorage will confront its homelessness emergency, but how America will answer the rise of people living without a home. Will we persist in punishing poverty, or will we choose courageous, compassionate actions that restore dignity and hope? Conclusion. Anchorage stands at a pivotal moment. The homelessness crisis exposes deep-rooted inequality, a fragile safety net, and the shortcomings of temporary measures. But it also reveals what truly helps Housing First initiatives, grassroots community action, and the resilience of those who refuse to give up. Progress will require courageous leadership, consistent investment, and a shared belief that housing is a fundamental right, not a luxury. This isn't merely Anchorage's problem. It reflects America's larger struggle. The question remains, will we look away or choose empathy and lasting change?